What's going on, world? It's your boy at Big Game James _36 with a little special edition here of a Big Games BS, a little still Florida State vibe, Florida State feel here. We're gonna have my guy Chris Frazier with Sporadics come on, and then we got a special guest. And I'm gonna bring them both on. Little bit at a time. I want everybody should know who Chris is, but I want Chris to introduce himself. But it's all about being current and not burying the lead. The most current news is athletic director Mike Alford really put the ACC and the nation on notice, basically stating that Florida State is looking to get out of its relationship with the ACC. It is not a fiscally responsible partnership, and now you're starting to see a lot of pundits and a lot of people kind of come on board and say, "Hey, yeah, we told you so." But there's really been only a couple people that I know have kind of been on the forefront when it comes to all of these different things. One, being my good friend Chris Frazier, and another one being a guy TJ, who it seems like people are literally stealing his stuff and using it on their stuff. And I'm used to that. That happens to us all the time. So what we want to do is I want to introduce No Nation, DIN Media Group, people who follow SEC, ACC, Big Ten, that follow my channel or follow my stuff to really kind of get indoctrinated. And I'm going to show you guys a different side of big game, not this just big jock. I graduated college in 3 years. I'm kind of a nerd sometimes, so I pick on my son, but I'm a little bit. He got it from someone. But first, I want to bring on my guy Chris with Sporadics, and I want what's going on, Chris? How you doing this evening?
Man, pretty good. Looking forward to this conversation, to be honest. It's been a long time coming, really.
I promise I'm geeked. I had it literally when we had this convo, I think with Mark Rogers in July, it literally solidified everything. But it's really for the people who believe that college football or college athletics is really only fueled by one source. And I get it because we're in the South, but nobody really cares about just sports outside the South. It's a big part, but it's not the only part when it comes to what's at stake and what's coming on. So we got Chris. Chris, can you tell us a little bit about Sporadics and where people can find you?
Yeah. So if you go to YouTube and you put in Sporadics the same way that you see it here on the screen, you can find us on the YouTube channel. Also, you can find me on Twitter. Also, have a really huge Facebook page. And each and every one of these you can find just by typing in @Sporadics. And we have a really good show every Monday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. James is 99% of the time on that show. We have a good time keeping up with Florida State. And so if you have any Florida State content needs, make sure that you come and check us out. And that's pretty much it.
All right. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce the man of, I'm assuming we're not going to go over an hour, but probably prefer to keep it shorter than that since it's Sunday and some of us have work and family dinners that we still got to eat, or supper, as my guy Chris says. I want to bring on TJ.
Hey guys, I'm Tony. How are you? Good to meet you.
What's going on? What's going on? Okay, we're gonna give you official. We'll give the official name. I'm just calling you by your Twitter. So he's doing. Oh no,
that works by all means. I'm doing. Hey, I'll tell you guys one of my very favorite like when I was like 12 or 13 or something, younger than that, maybe even like 10 or whatever. Football game experiences was watching Florida State go into Ann Arbor in I think it was in the Desmond Howard year and just demolish Michigan. And so ever since then, I've always loved the Noles a little bit.
Gotcha. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do, where people can follow you. Just give us a little bit of a background before we really get into the crux of why we're here.
Sure. So I actually do consulting work in my regular life, and I've actually also both in professionally and pro bono, do a lot of work with higher education with universities. And as this realignment stuff really started to become a big deal a couple of years ago, I found that a lot of the media people and a lot of the sports people didn't understand really the role that athletics plays in a university. And they didn't understand really the priorities of higher education organizations. And they were acting sort of like as if athletic departments made decisions like they were pro teams or the USFL, when in reality they are divisions of higher education and they make decisions that are focused on higher education. And I mean, a great example of that is Florida State. You guys are, and I mean this in the most complimentary way, like Florida State is an academically thirsty school in a good way. Like you guys, I mean, you guys are up to number 55 in the U.S. News rankings. That's tied with Washington. I mean, you guys are a world-class school, and so you are using your athletics to further and build that brand and build all that up to really accentuate your academic. Like it's really kind of merging them together, and I think it's something a lot of people don't appreciate. And sorry, I'm not. Am I echoing on my end, or is that? No. Okay. Sorry. Perfect.
All right. I think we got the echo good. So you were saying you're kind of going along the lines of what I was talking about. Florida State is. You said Florida State's an academically thirsty institution.
In a good way.
Yeah, no. I'm going to cover that. So one of the things that people don't understand is you have to look at the hires and you have to look at what the university is trying to do from a bigger picture and not just an athletic standpoint. When they brought in President John Thrasher, his whole purpose was to make Florida State into a fundraising machine so that they could do more on the academic side. Florida State competes with one school. Now, that school happens to be another school that's very, very high. We compete with them in every aspect. All we care about is University of Florida. So when I try to take things and simplify it to people and say, just think about this. What would the decision do to make us compete with the University of Florida? And does it help us? So when you're saying academically thirsty, we look at that. So Thrasher's brought in with his knowledge of Florida politics, having been the former Speaker of the House, he does this. Oh wow. And you've got the athletic director that you're bringing in John Thrasher. I'm not John Thrasher, excuse me. And Mike Alford. And what he's trying to do. Then you've got other things going on and on. So like, I'm with you 100% on the academically thirsty front. I mean, we want to become the premier institution.
And the other thing too, by the way, is the people don't appreciate is you guys are doing as important as your athletic department is, you're doing $350 million a year in federal research that is essential for the school. And I mean, for example, the schools that went from the Big 12 and the Mountain West to the Pac-12. Both in the first 10 years since they aligned with the Pac-12, their academic research went up 50%. So, I mean, if you guys were to do something where, for example, like the Big Ten, where their research is a huge focus, you could very easily do that. And I mean, that's talking about the difference of, $150 or $175 million every year more for the university or for Florida State University. There is a lot of money to be had through. There's a lot more money in academics than there are in athletics. And I mean, funny enough, that was sort of the decision that the Ivy League made in 1954 was they sort of decided to get out of sports and focus on the big money. Now what we've done. And now one of the things too, for example, should we talk about the BTAA?
You're starting to break up a little bit.
Sorry, am I cutting out?
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. So before you get into BTAA,
go for it.
because that is something that a lot of people don't understand. What I want to do is I would like to talk about the three options. Actually, yeah, the three options as it stands now for Florida State. So option one, obviously, staying with the ACC, and the reason why I wanted to bring you on is I saw a tweet that you brought up about two conferences and basically their pseudo mergership with things going on. What could that possibly mean? Another thing I would like you to bring up is obviously we want to talk about the Big Ten and what that relationship brings, and then possibly the SEC. And I know you have some graphics and things of that nature. Do I need to pull up that? I need to pull up the other.
We don't have to do that one quite yet.
Okay, all right. So just let me
we
know
talk
when you
about
want me to
that
pull that up.
We'll talk about that more with the ACC.
Okay.
First of all, let's mention this thing about the SEC, and let me tell you guys a secret about the SEC. The SEC tries to pretend. I joke that they pretend for their fans. They want their fans to think they're dumb, but they're not. The SEC has actually, besides the Big Ten, the second strictest academic requirements for admission. Since its founding in 1932, the SEC has only added schools that are either AAU members or state flagship institutions.
Wow.
That's it. Only AAU members or state flagship schools. I always joke, the SEC, they want their fans to think they're dumb, but they're not. So that's actually stricter expectations than the Pac-12 or the ACC. The ACC, if you look at the ACC has a lot of smaller private schools. So if you look at metrics of the ACC, their schools outrank the SEC, but the SEC, it has these huge, important state flagship schools like Florida, like Alabama, like Ole Miss. And so the SEC actually is a really, really solid academic conference. The difference with the SEC and the Big Ten is that the Big Ten has an entire academic wing and focus that is wildly different than any other conference in the country. And in fact, for example, the University of Chicago stopped playing football in 1939, but never left the academic parts of the Big Ten. So in fact, if you look at like the apply to a Big Ten school, they're all in alphabetical order, and it starts with C for Chicago, even though the University of Chicago plays Division III sports today. So there is a different focus in the Big Ten. But the thing I think for Florida State, first of all, is when you think about institutional and academics, all of your options are good. Now, we did an interesting thing. We looked a week or two ago at every power conference realignment move since 1930. And there were, I think I'd have to look at the chart, I think 47 of them, 46 or 47 of them. And one of the interesting things is that no school had ever academically downgraded into a like less prestigious academic conference. I would say for Florida State right now, what you guys are taking a look at, the SEC might be kind of a lateral move, but the Big Ten would be a step up. The Big Ten is the most prestigious academic conference in the country, almost as prestigious as the Ivy League if you're talking about research.
Oh, wow. So now,
yeah, the Big Ten blows the Ivy League out of the water for research, actually.
So you're saying that, so going back, you said Florida State raised $350 million.
No, you guys receive every year from your and the money, it keeps growing, but your research funding that you get from the government for all your research grants from governments and foundations and stuff, $350 million a year.
So in perspective, our ACC cut was $35 million from the TV.
No. That's research. That's academics.
No. I'm trying. So 30. So people, I want people to understand.
Oh yeah.
Why a conference move is bigger than just athletics. You're talking about right now. You have 10 times more money that Florida State brought in from academics than they did from the TV contract. Doesn't mean like all of athletics, but just from the TV contract.
10 times.
But in a move to the SEC, while it would definitely benefit us from an athletic monetary standpoint, it pales. It's more of a lateral move from the academic side.
Yeah, I mean, because the SEC is a good academic conference, as is the ACC is a great academic conference, as is the SEC. They're both very strong.
But the
Because
Big
again, the
Ten,
SEC has those big state flagships with like their big medical schools and stuff like that. The ACC has more smaller private schools like BC and Wake, that don't have medical schools and law schools. But BC has a law school. But they don't have those sort of giant research centric things. So I would say the SEC. Some people would put their nose in the air and say the SEC is a downgrade. I don't think so. I think it's SEC, ACC are pretty equivalent, and but the Big Ten would be a step up.
and not just because of obviously again the academics, because they all have those there, but they actually tie in together. And there's universities that are in with the big TAA. Can you explain what the big TAA actually is in relationship to the AAU?
Sure. So the AAU is the super elite club of the 60, what is it now? I don't know, 63 or whatever top research universities in the US and Canada. So there are the interesting thing of this is it's every member of the Ivy League. It is all of the Big Ten except Nebraska. It's most of the Pac-12, about half the SEC, a few of the ACC schools like North Carolina, Virginia, Duke. Blanking on somebody. There's five ACC schools, and then the Big 12 only has one, which is Kansas. So it is like the dream, like that is the goal to get in there, and that is like the sort of club that helps your university research just skyrocket. Like that is because what happens is when you're an AAU school, it's very prestigious, and so it makes it easier for your school to recruit more elite professors from other places. And as you recruit more elite professors, they bring in more research, which leads to this other stuff, which leads to the brand being higher, which leads to better students, which leads to better rankings, which leads to more money, which leads to more research, which leads to better rankings, which leads to more money. So it's this awesome spiraling factor that to a university leader, getting AAU status is like it's like the academic equivalent of like getting in the Power Five. It's like the elite thing that you want. And nothing helps that happen more than being in a conference with everybody else that has it. Like Utah talks about how important being in the Pac-12 was to them being able to get AAU status. And then the BTAA is separate. Should we do that?
Yeah, hold on. So just before the BTAA, so coming into the AAU is basically a requirement of being in the Big Ten anyway. But that move alone could probably could grow Florida State from $350 million to a little bit more, correct?
To 500 probably.
Okay, so just that years. Move, and us, for people, Florida State fans, what I want us to realize again, look at the totality of hires. Our current president, his last job was at Harvard. Harvard is in the AAU, correct? So,
yeah.
So if you look at it's just you don't have to be you don't really have to have sources to be considered an insider per se. It's this thing that we all learned when we did geometry. It's called deductive reasoning. It doesn't mean that we won't go to the SEC because you said the SEC right now currently is
great conference.
A lot of guys are bringing in more AAU guys right now. So
you bet.
But now talk about what the BTAA is and what that could potentially do.
So this is something big, and this is something that I think might change the math for Florida State in a huge way. So the Big Ten decided in the 40s or the 50s that they should actually do things academically together more. And that the Big Ten should be a lot more than just being a sports conference. So they started to do things like they integrate all of their libraries together. So the Big Ten libraries is the single biggest network of academic libraries in the nation. They integrate all of their purchasing, right? So the Big Ten schools save millions of dollars off their joint hotel discounts and their joint car rental discounts because they buy toilet paper or paper, whatever they buy. they buy it all together through joint purchasing of 15 giant universities instead of one. The Big Ten combines their like cybersecurity and their IT development together. The Big Ten trains each other's PhDs to help them become better professors, and then they help hire them. So, you guys are trying to churn out your PhDs and get them like placed into elite universities. Like the Big Ten has clubs that do that. They mentor PhD students amongst each other. They have a conference center in Chicago called the Big Ten Center. It's a whole conference center, and they use it for like academic research conferences. They combine all of this stuff together, and when you think about it, that is millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. I mean, you guys have talked. They've talked about, oh well, if we left the ACC, it would cost us these hundreds of the math, and I mean, I don't want to speculate. We won't get boring here into maths and charts and all that, but like the math of joining the Big Ten, the academic, not even just the research growth, just the pure academic benefits of joining the Big Ten would probably pay for you to get out of the ACC. Not to mention the Big Ten actually, like they work together on stuff, try to do joint research, to try to pair research projects together. So, I mean, if you went to the Big Ten, I mean, your $350 million could rather, before this ACC contract is done, that might be $700 million. That might be $600 million. And that, again, it's not the same, and it's not the same pile of money, right? Because the athletic department sort of needs to break even. But if you could get the athletic department to break even with what it costs to get out of the ACC and get into the Big Ten, and actually, I think it's pretty obvious. Not only would you break even, but you'd still come out ahead. But you don't have to come out a lot ahead, because I think on the academic side, the money would be so big and so impactful for Florida State, especially if you got in the AAU, that if you guys can pull a Big Ten invite, you would absolutely want to do that. And that's not a diss on the ACC, because I hugely respect the ACC. And I've talked to like UConn people and stuff like that. Like, I think the ACC should be preparing to replace you guys. But like, there is so much synergy that if you guys, the Big Ten, it's almost like getting that like dream job at Google. Like if Google calls and they're like, James, we want you to come to us tomorrow, you're going to go. And that's kind of what the Big Ten is, I think academically. And that's why people don't understand, like the Pac-12 and the Big Ten have always been like best friends, because they're very aligned kind of in their academic missions. But for USC and UCLA, what people don't appreciate is like getting to do this was huge. Like the old president emeritus of USC used to always tell me that being an AAU is the most important thing for USC. And he actually used to say, and people are going to hate me for saying this, he's deceased, so I can probably admit it without him being mad. But he would say, I want people to think about us with Stanford and Yale, not Alabama and Tennessee. And so he would be really thrilled that, USC was now aligned with Michigan and Northwestern and Ohio State. And those are, he would have wanted Stanford to come with us. And they still might. But there's just enormous benefit. And the thing of it is, these things have financial benefits. Like, I don't know, we'd have to look at what however many tens of millions of dollars Florida State spends on your libraries. But if you can consolidate your library holdings into the Big Ten, that's millions and millions of dollars of savings a year. And you have now your Florida State students and your professors are integrated into the best, library technology thing in the world.
Real quick, I'm looking at a chart that you sent me from this summer. So we like to talk about, Florida State fans like charts. And what I'll do is I'll tweet this chart out so people can understand with some clips, because you dropped some. I don't listen to my old work, but I'm going to watch this again because it's really some good stuff in there. But in this, you told me to look at the bottom half of the Big Ten in comparison.
Oh, and by the way,
this is
real quick, I just looked up some of your statistics. You know how I mentioned, I said you guys are academically thirsty?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your statistics have gone up since some of those numbers. If it's the chart I think you're looking at, your statistics are actually better since then.
Well, yeah, we've got the medical, we've got the partnership with Tallahassee Memorial Hospital.
Yeah, no, I mean like significantly better. Like you guys, we talked about you guys being like kind of like middling in the Big Ten, you're better than middling in the Big Ten.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, based on these last numbers, that's all we can do. So this is from the summer, so this is probably what 2023, so 2021 stats more than likely. So I'm glad we're done.
And some of the data is a little old.
Yeah, we would have ranked 9th in the Big Ten based on that data. Oh, excuse me, my bad. I apologize. We're 9th in the ACC based upon that data. The 9th team in the Big Ten is Northwestern, and they're 800. They brought in 875 million on the academic research side based upon that past data. So, like,
this is in research.
Think about that. If Florida State was able to just be 9th on that side, the money that would have changed, that would have exchanged, and then I'm looking at the SEC, Texas A&M, with all of the massive things that they're able to do with their oil money. Florida is 942 million. So again, it goes back into what Alfred was saying, which would probably be echoed to what the president would say in a similar manner, or at least I would hope. We can't continue to compete with our peers when there's that much of a gap in revenue that we're bringing in. So again, athletically, like when we look at what the Big Ten is trying to do, they're going to be the only true conference in one that is a nationwide conference. And you'll have the LA market, which basically dominates that's the West Coast. You have the entire West Coast and the mountain time zones right there. You've got the Big Ten, which has the entire Midwest. But you also have Boston College, which gets you the Boston market, which is one of the largest TV markets. Then that comes into what will probably happen if Florida State were to leave. It would be a 1 to 2 to 3 teams that would be able to go. Miami, from a research perspective, can probably handle the AAU. Some of the other stuff would have to develop as well, but you'll get the floor. The only way for the Big Ten to expand more would be to get the South, as they don't have anything in the South. So that just makes more sense to them from that. So that means the TV dollars, which is already going to be close to 100 million, which is 70 million more than what we're making. That's if it stays as it is now. It will be a renegotiated TV deal. It will be much bigger. But from a research perspective, wouldn't that be really, really good to be able to have ties in California, the ability to research in California, the ability to research in the North, in the Midwest?
It's because you'd be in this sort of club. And so, like, to professors, as you're trying to attract professors, it makes it a better, like a more, it's about a brand perception, but it's not just a brand perception of like t-shirts. It's a brand perception among professors and among research professionals and people like that it makes people want to come work for Florida State. And that perception, like that elite brand perception that comes from the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten, I don't know if you guys know Johns Hopkins is a member of the Big Ten?
No.
Johns Hopkins
really?
They for their Division I sports, like for their lacrosse teams. You'll see, you'll see they love it. They love it. They've got that Big Ten logo on their stuff. They're so proud of that. Johns Hopkins does $3.5 billion a year with a B in federal research money. $3.5 billion. Maryland does what? $1.5 billion. So you know, I think UCLA is right up there as well. So I mean, these are just giant things. So when you guys are partnering with these types of schools, you're at 350, which is on the lower end of the Big Ten. It's not on the bottom, but it's on the lower end of the Big Ten. You're about 350. And so, you know, I mean, if you guys, I honestly think that Florida State, because you're thirsty in a good way. USC is the same way. You could take that 350 and turn that into 7. And then that's $350 extra million a year. And the thing of it is once you start that academic climb, that's also when rich, you know, the really, really rich people and the really rich foundations and stuff, when they start writing checks to you for 20 million here and 50 million here and 40 million there and 100 million here, and you build up your endowment and you get the major, major money in. And there's nothing better than big time sports for that. So I'll tell you, I went to grad school at the University of Pennsylvania, and we were in a meeting once, and I was sitting there, and this was actually a meeting on employee health benefits with had to chair this committee, and it was with the president's number 2. And they just finished raising $3.5 billion for their endowment campaign. And we had a really funny relationship, but just in the middle of the meeting, he just looks at me and he goes, if I had USC football, I could have raised $20 billion. And I laughed. And I mean, that's the thing, is with your football and your sports and your enthusiasm and your growing state in your population, to take that academic leap up, I think would pay dividends in hundreds of millions of dollars for Florida State.
So I have a quick question. Other than Florida State sports, obviously, and what TV viewership that we bring, so if we take the athletics and move it to the side, is there anything else that Florida State attracts the Big Ten to? Is there anything else that we could benefit the Big Ten with other than just what our athletics are?
Your market? So
Yeah.
So here's the thing with the Big Ten, and that is the Big Ten has a problem right now. And that problem is that the Big Ten, and the SEC has the same problem, by the way, and that is that they are making so much money, and their TV rights are worth so much money that they have trouble finding schools that can actually make the pie bigger. So, for example, Washington and Oregon. This is according to reports. I don't have inside information on this. This is according to media reports, but supposedly Washington and Oregon applied to the Big Ten, and the Big Ten ran the numbers with the TV people, and the TV people said, actually, we're paying you so much money now that if we add Oregon and Washington, you're actually going to be worth less. Each of you is worth less, because remember, the thing of it is the Big Ten now, they get paid. They're getting media rights of 70. I think it's an average of $75 million a year into their new deal. The ACC is like in the 29-ish or 30-ish. I think it's going to be like 34-ish in the coming years, because it's on an accelerating thing. We can look at some charts on that. But for the Big Ten, the thing is they, in order to add somebody, they have to add somebody who adds so much market power that it makes it a net positive. So it's the idea of like, you're going to cut the pizza up into more slices. So you need a big enough pizza so that everybody has the same amount in each slice. And there's very few schools that can do that. Now, I don't have the inside Fox TV money projection numbers. But I have been told by people that you guys, like, for example, you guys in Miami probably would be important enough and big enough to do that. And we can look at some TV charts that, you guys exceed all expectations in terms of TV value. People watch Florida State even when you're bad. Mm-hmm. You guys have had some rough years, and people still watch you guys.
When I'm looking at our numbers in comparison to the ACC, we have 3.17 million viewers per game. We're the highest, even with Clemson being able to go on their little run recently. I think that makes us the third highest.
I put a chart in the share screen because I think you guys actually are selling yourselves short on this. So let me show you something actually. So we'll start with this one. So one of the issues here is that TV viewership is a screwy number that people don't understand a lot of times, because most TV viewership depends on two things, or 2.5 things. The first thing is what channel it's on. So, like, if you have a big football game on ABC at 8 o'clock at night, tons of people watch it, right? That's my computer. Sorry, can you guys hear that weird noise? Okay. Oh, is that better? Okay. That was not my computer. So if you have something at a primetime game, tons of people watch it. And if you have a random game on ESPN2, not as many people watch it. So this is actually looking here at conference games just between ACC, Pac-10, and Big 12 members on secondary channels, ESPNU, Fox Sports 1, ESPN2, those kind of channels. And you see they're actually pretty steady. but 3 schools blow the viewership out of the water. And it's you guys, Oregon and Washington. So people watch Florida State. Now, we did some statistical measurements. I won't bore you too much on them exactly, but we looked at across all channels, like how do teams do relative to what would be expected for that channel. And if you take a look here, you guys were number 1. Oregon number 2, Louisville number 3, Washington number 4, Clemson number 5. So the thing about Clemson, for example, is, a lot of people watch Clemson, but they watch Clemson because Clemson was number 1 and they were playing in primetime on ABC. They don't watch Clemson because it's Clemson.
So a lot of this has to do with the channel then. So like,
yeah,
if you've got, if you've got the number 1 or number 2 team on ABC, then really the reason they're being watched is because of, 1, where they're ranked, but 2, most important, is that's ABC.
Yeah, exactly. You've literally just hit it on the head. Like, now there's a little bit of, chicken or the egg there, right? But like in general, the big game on ABC, people are going to watch. And if we think about it, I mean, anybody who's watching here, our show right now, is going to be a big football fan. But like most viewers are like your Aunt Edna. And she's watching ABC and maybe she can't find the remote. Right? For every one of us football fanatics that's thinking about how we're watching it, there's 5 Aunt Ednas that can't find the remote and they're just watching what's on ABC. And the thing about it is ABC is going to put on the number 1 team or the number 2 team, those kinds of things. So Clemson, it's not that people watch Clemson. I mean, people do watch Clemson, but like Clemson's success under Dabo Swinney, which is awesome, has led to Clemson being a huge draw. The crazy thing is that you guys outperform how you should do. You guys are better than your own team because it's Florida State. You guys are like Notre Dame, and you have really transcended just like what would be expected for the channel, in that more people watch you, and that is something that's really, really powerful.
So when you move down this chart, that's particularly up here, like where,
and again, these are not viewers. This is a statistical score, so don't worry about it too much. But look at kind of the difference in the impact. This is really the impact from normal, kind of the variation, the outlier aspects. It's sort of like calling out who are the outliers. So I mean, an example would be, and oh my God, their Twitter mafia are going to pick on me for saying this, but like UCF and Kansas, like people don't watch UCF and Kansas. People do watch you in Oregon.
Right.
More so than they would normally. Like they're more likely to turn the channel off if it's Kansas, and more likely to leave it on the channel if it's you or Oregon. Now, as a USC alum, that pains me a little bit because, I hate Oregon, but oh well. Just kidding, Ducks. I love you.
So based off of this statistic, and I know you're saying that is it stating that the teams that are going negative here, that they kind of underperform on that channel?
Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha. So,
across all channels.
Right. Gotcha.
And you look, a lot of them are bad, right? So they're bad teams. So people don't want to watch bad teams. I'm
surprised that North Carolina does as bad as they do.
But remember, this is a decade of data from 2012 to 2012. We also think in our football mindset of like what happened 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So this is a decade of data from 2012 to 2021. They were pretty bad there. But I mean, North Carolina and Duke are kind of weird in that they are like elite brand schools, but like just nobody watches their football teams. And if you look at it, actually, you see it here too. This is actual viewers of games between ACC, Pac-10, and Big 12 on that whole secondary channel. Because I think the secondary channels are interesting because, like you said, it's ABC at 8 p.m. People watch. So the secondary channel is interesting because we're saying, okay, you kind of have to find these games. Like if it's on ESPNU or FS1, you have to want to watch it. And you see that most of them are pretty steady.
Right.
And until you really get down there to Houston, and Central Florida is kind of cut off on the screen here. But look at, or it's Oregon and Washington. You guys are the boom. And by the way, West Virginia, go Mountaineers, who I think is the most underrated school in conference realignment discussions, is number 1 in the Big 12.
All right, I'm back. I lost this. I don't know. I lost sound. I lost all of that good stuff. So again, that just makes me have to go back and listen to it again. But I'm seeing the comments and everybody's just like, you're opening their eyes to a part of this whole conference realignment that a lot of people didn't think about. And that's part of the reason why I wanted you on, because I was thinking these things, but I was just thinking these things without any stats or any data. Like you're like really bringing this kind of bringing this full circle into a head.
Well, and let me show you guys something else here. So we're talking about research. Let's I just try to move this slide. So this is research among the Power 5 conferences. And this is, by the way, this is like 2 years old. Sorry, guys. I need to make a new slide. But I mean, the differences haven't really changed, right? So there you are at about like 350 million. I was like, so if you take a look at the Big Ten, like these are schools you kind of think your parents used to say, like you are who your friends are. Like that's very, very true in higher ed academics. You are who your friends are. And if you take a look here, you see you want to be friends with the Big Ten. Like those are some massive numbers. And that does not include, I didn't put on here just because it would have blown it away, Johns Hopkins, which is an affiliate member of the Big Ten, at $3.5 billion.
And University of Chicago too, right?
Yeah, University of Chicago they're right at about $1 billion. Yeah, it's the Big Ten is a ridiculous. But now I do have to give a caveat here. The University of California, God love Berkeley. They're always a pain in my ass, whether it's in football or calculating academic money. Their number ranges somewhere between 840 million and 10 billion, depending on what you want to include. They literally build like nuclear weapons. So like how much do you want to include? The number varies a lot. Their medical school, it's like not under their control anymore because it got so big it got separated. So like, do you add that or not? Like Cal's a big pain. I like to think of Cal as being about 3 billion, but their official number is about 840 million. But you can safely say that they should be up to 10 billion, depending on your opinion. Cal's a wacky piece. But everybody else is pretty reliable here.
So
by the way, I'm not a Cal fan. I sometimes get accused of being like a Cal homer, and I literally hate them. It's pretty funny.
So that I don't get accused of trying to slant the argument, or slant the information towards what my argument is, which I am a Big Ten fan. Moving to the Big Ten. I don't really care about the football. I've liked the culture and what they've done ever since I played against Penn State in the Orange in my last game in 2005, and I saw what they probably single-handedly did to the South Florida economy. Like they're fun. It was almost a Penn State home game. Like everybody came, like, and I get it. Like, why would you want to be stuck in the snow when you could be on South Beach? So I always tell people like noon game in September where it's 1,000 degrees in Tallahassee. No problem. Everybody's coming. Everybody, if we're playing Michigan, everybody's coming. If we're playing whoever, like they'll plan. They don't even start school till Labor Day anyway. So like they'll plan vacations around that, which I think is great. Things that we probably don't even know. Like we probably don't even like care to delve into it. But for the population of Tallahassee, and the business and the 2-hour surrounding radius, because one thing about having family in the Northeast, when I say I got to drive to Tallahassee, that's 2 hours. They're like, okay, my family tell me I'm in Florida and it's 6 hours away, and that's nothing to them because, they're like, well, at least it's moving because we'll be stuck in traffic. So,
well, and one thing too, I think
about
real quick, just one big thing I just want to make really clear to everybody watching this. You guys are right now talking about, should we be in the ACC? Should we be in the SEC or should we be in the Big Ten? And this is an awesome debate between three phenomenal conferences. There is not a bad answer in there.
Gotcha.
Like,
What
I just want to
want
reiterate, like, we go back and forth on pros and cons, but like these are three absolutely phenomenal conferences with three absolutely phenomenal sets of universities in them. And that I think is, first of all, a baseline we want to make sure everybody takes away.
We're the pretty girl at prom. Like everybody.
Oh no, let's be honest. You're the supermodel at prom.
It's as I tell a lot of my pretty friends who are women, and they tell me stuff. I said, well, you could be ugly and nobody would talk to you. Like, so there's a pros and cons for it. But this ACC Pac-12 talked about not necessarily a merger, but like a co-op type thing. What is your opinion on it, and what is your knowledge of that at this point right now?
I'm going to word this very carefully. I have not heard anything credible that implies that is anything other than one or two particular writers who are just writing things. I could be wrong.
I looked at it as it was a shot it was the last ditch effort of somebody trying to make sure they keep the girl from dating.
So first of all, one of the things is nobody from the Pac-12 is going to the Big 12. The Pac-12, I love the Pac-12. They're kind of a little bit snooty, like in a good way. They're snooty in a good way. The Pac-12. Every single member of the Big 12 applied to the Pac-12 last year, and they were all turned down. Every single one of them. So there is a weird internet fantasy among some Big 12 fans that they wrongly think that some Pac-12 members have any interest in joining them, and they're actually wrong. And so, like, you don't want to be a dick and like have to really like point out in a nasty way like why that's not going to happen. But for all the academic reasons we talked about why Florida State should want to be in the Big Ten is why no Pac-12 team is going to go to the Big 12. So that's not happening. These same like sort of realignment fantasy people have started now yapping about this Pac-12 ACC thing. I will tell you the Pac-12 schools are just shredding USC and UCLA for like their Big Ten travel things. So they're not going to take on worse travel than the Big Ten without Big Ten money. Like it's not happening. So I'll tell you, if there was to be a true like academic alliance that would be awesome. If they were going to do like a real scheduling alliance of some kind for football and basketball, holy crap, that would be super cool. I don't think it's happening because also, and I'm just going to word this very delicately, most of this is driven by one writer who is like actively trying to like DM every Twitter person in the world about his idea for this. And it seems that it's like one writer more so than it's anything that has to do with the conferences. Again, I don't have their phones tapped. I don't know what they're talking about. But I have not heard anything about this from anyone that we know from our group that we've talked to that has anything to do with the actual schools.
So having that cross country travel, those things, and so the SEC
all the negatives for none of the money.
So the SEC doesn't do no other conference does quite what the Big Ten does as far as partnering from an academic standpoint.
Nobody's even close. The ACC does some, but nobody's even close to the Big Ten. Not even close.
Okay.
The Pac-12 has a little bit of issues because like the University of California system is so integrated that it's a little more complicated. Like, and you also then start to have like weird overlap between the Pac-12 and the Big West. I don't know if you guys know about the Big West. The Big West is where like UC Santa Barbara, UC San Diego. The Big West is actually, funny enough, one of the most academically prestigious conferences in the country. even though like you won't hear about them outside of like water polo and like, I don't know, track or whatever. But
I think that's the biggest thing, and I'm glad you kind of came on and gave us so much academic stuff, things that just make sense. Because at the end of the day, one thing that most of us in the fan base can agree on was we want money. But everybody, we only see what's in front of us, and that all we see is is what's popular. And we look at football as God, and we see, and rightfully so, it's a lot of money. 35 million, 55 million, 100 million per, like, or 1 billion, $1 billion contract split between teams. And when you're looking at some of these schools in the Big Ten, I believe it's Michigan, they're at what, 1.6 billion. Is
yeah,
they're getting that
it's more
already
now.
just off of academic stuff. And you still have to build things. So this helps with the facilities race. So yes, athletics has to hold their own, but when you're building things on campus and you're growing, like Florida State, I don't know how every other school does it, but the stadium is actually housing a lot of academic things and a lot of offices and stuff like that. So
you guys have been on the forefront of leading that, actually, which I think is an awesome thing.
Multi-use facilities is
Notre Dame does that too now.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, those are things
you guys were the groundbreakers on that.
You said what?
You guys were like really, I think Ohio State, they have some stuff with their stadium, but Florida State has awesomely really integrated their stadium to make it a part of the whole student life experience. And I think that's something really cool.
One of the first things they taught me as a student athlete at Florida State is that the idea of the campus is to make Doak Campbell the center of campus. So the only way to do that is to spill out into the city, into other areas. And the only way to do that is to have money. And the fastest way to get money from basically what you're showing us today is not just is use the athletics as the biggest, most powerful marketing arm that you could possibly get. But damn it, join some people that's actually out here getting money. We have this term where I grew up. I don't know if it's a Southern thing or it's just where money know money or money attracts money. That we need to get around the money. That's basically what I'm reading right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, again, you guys are you're the prettiest girl at the prom. So like, this is you're the supermodel at the prom. It's a wonderful thing to be. But the thing that you can keep in mind is just remember that as you think about like, okay, could we break even in athletics if we went from the ACC to the Big Ten? I think you could. Again, your lawyers are there. And all right, I'm going to be really politically incorrect here. The governor could probably just declare the ACC like an illegal immigrant and like unilaterally get you guys out or something at this rate. I know I'm half joking, but like the thing that if your state government was willing to fight on it, which your state government loves to fight just to fight, this might be not as hard a thing as other schools are dealing with.
See, Simon, Corey, if you're watching, you guys are doing some controversial shit over there voting. Let's just go ahead and make everybody mad. Go ahead and pass the bill. Go talk to Ron. Let's do this. I'm with it.
Do that. Yeah, I mean, why not? Well, hey, if he wants to be, by the way, if Ron wants to be president, maybe he should appeal to Ohio voters. And is there any better way to appeal to Ohio voters than to get Florida State in the Big Ten? I don't know. There you go. Well, political theory.
We roughed up Kirk Herbstreit. I think the last time we played them, so they might not like us too much. So I have to ask
all the better to get their forgiveness by moving to the Big Ten.
But, speaking on the the grant of rights deal, I've talked to a lot of Florida lawyers, contract lawyers, and each and every one of them that have got to read it, they tell me the same exact thing. And my assumption was with Michael Alford coming out and stating basically what I called it was putting the ACC on notice that we're not going to stand by and just keep losing out on $30 extra million a year. I don't think that a school stands out and makes that public if they don't have ideas of how they get out of it.
So I have another idea. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I have another theory for this for you. Go ahead.
And the other side of it was which Danielle, which has done shows with James, and they've done things together. But she had wrote a really good piece on it as well. But she's one contract lawyer, and I've talked to 3 others, and they have stated to me that there's so many loopholes slash there are performance circumstances of what they were supposed to benefit off of as a school, and that you could literally state that the ACC did not
fulfill its requirements.
yeah, they're just not giving you the performance that you deserve as a university. So that it was like really easy for them to argue that this kind of is null and void because you didn't hold up to your end of the bargain, and they would argue it all day.
That could be. Can I give you guys my sort of like theory as to what this might be as well? And I don't know. I hope your athletic director doesn't hate me for saying this. So there is about to be about 10, maybe 15, somewhere between like $8 and $15 million a school in new money coming in from the college football playoff. And we don't know exactly what that's going to be. And there may be more money coming in from the basketball tournament as well. And if I was Florida State and I'm dealing with the ACC, and like nobody from the ACC is going to just be like, oh my God, Florida State, you're so much cooler than us. Take our money. Just because like that, they're not going to do that. But this new basketball money coming in, or this new football money coming in for the new expanded playoffs, if you guys push for it, the ACC might allocate that in an uneven way. So the Pac-12 had uneven revenue sharing for 60 years. The good 60 years until Larry Scott screwed it up and made it even and wrecked it for everybody. So what you could do is I'm going to make numbers up here, right? But you could say, hey, for every football game you win, you get X percentage of the playoff money. And you and Clemson, who win a lot of football games, might be able to close that gap by getting $30 million extra from the playoff money, and then everybody else gets 10 million, whatever the numbers are. But you could make up a $30 million gap through a merit-based system for awarding the playoff money. So that might be what you're putting them on notice for. It might be we're going to leave, or it might be, hey, you need to make up the difference for us. Because you guys might also say like, hey, you know what? It's way more fun to play Wake Forest and Boston College than it is to play Ohio State and Penn State and USC. Although you did kick our butts when you played us at USC. I do remember that, unfortunately.
I think that's also like a lot of people look at they look at the worst in one scenario and the best. Our fans do it with weather. My father lives in Columbus, Ohio. I get the updates all the time. I don't want to be there in December. Maybe Thanksgiving, but you know what? We have an out. There's state law that dictates we play a game Thanksgiving weekend. We have to play a team, so we don't have to really worry about that. So that's one game gone.
That helps.
If Clemson comes with us or Miami comes with us, we're going to play one of those two in November. Leaves us 2 weekends. A lot of wiggle room. They got to come. Like, it doesn't snow every day in the Midwest. We won't play Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC every year. We'll play the Purdues, the Indianas, the Illinois, the Northwesterns. Like, we're cool with those. We'll get one of those because right now we play Clemson, Florida, Miami, Notre Dame every 4 years. We already played them. And then on top of us playing a Georgia or Alabama, LSU. So we're used to having 5 or 6 teams that on a good year could all be legit. On a bad year, half of those guys are bad. So we're not worried about that per se. But I do think at the end of the day, I always tell people, it's not about the athletes. It's not about the students. The most American thing is apple pie is what our economy is built on. Capitalism. What's going to make us money? What's going to do that? And money talks. That's the biggest thing for this, man. But I really enjoyed this, Tony. I'm going to tell you this. And if right now, this is my time for me to be capitalist, if you don't mind. Chris, if you don't
I like
mind.
it.
If you like some of this conversation, please let me know. I would love to talk more. I'm not trying to offend you on this, Tony, too. I say nerd talk because it's so opposite of what I do, but I'm having such a great time. I also do this with comic books. So it just shows people a different side of me. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to, during football season or getting close to this, I'm going to try to find a way to get to Tony, but it's only for members. Like, we may drop it later, but it's going to only be for members of Den Media Group. Just the extra content for you being a special person and dropping $3.99 a month on us at minimum. Go look through all the
You guys
different
should all
things that we're
join.
doing. Yes, please join. Subscribe if you're a new watcher, just to be able to do that. Tony, can you tell us how to get in contact with you, how to follow you, and how to get more information like this?
Yeah, so the easy way, you just follow me on Twitter at TJ Altimore. DM me if you need anything. Happy to chat. Happy to, if there's folks that have questions or whatever, just hit me up. Glad to chat. I love all my friends from Florida State. We have a place here. I'm actually near West Palm right now. So hello from Florida to everybody. And I think you guys are in a really exciting place. It's an exciting time, and no matter what happens, Florida State's going to be in good shape.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Please go follow TJ. Look for some cut-ups. We'll definitely have his graphs up on our social media. Very informative. He dumbed it down so much that you can go take this to your local bar or your local message boards, and now you can sound like the genius, because that's what you guys do. I'm not hating you for it. Please do. I understand how my bread is buttered in sports media, man. Appreciate you, TJ.
Thank you, guys.
Go Noles.
Go
Noles.
And I got my guy Chris here. Please make sure you check out Chris with Sporadics. We're going to try to do some more things together to add more Seminole things. This was just something that it's an important topic. Everybody's literally debating. They're fighting each other. They're just SEC. Hey, one thing I got from Tony is that none of the situations are overly bad. They're all positives that can come out of this, whether it's the ACC. I ain't going to hold you. He's not here no more. Chris knows our time. ACC, the only way they're keeping us is if they bend over a spreadsheet. That's the only way we're staying. And even then, it never works. Like Texas, Big 12 did this for Texas, and Texas still left. The only way it's going to work is I like the idea that he said, I don't think it's enough for playoff money. We'd have to have uneven distribution of the bowl money, along with our own network, which helps us with which I don't think a lot of people understand how much secondary rights really come into things, but that would compete directly with the ACC network. So it would really, I don't see any kind of way coming with the SEC, but the SEC would still help us with the money. But what I wanted to show people was it's really about the vision of the university. Like I actually really enjoy my university, not just my football program, but like every aspect of athletics. I hate school, but I love the school at the same time. And I think when I believed in the Big Ten, but when TJ broke this down to me in the summer, it was great. I just felt the need to bring him to Seminole Nation. So, again, everybody knows who Chris is with Sporadics. Actually, Chris, what was your thoughts and your opinions on this?
Well, I mean, I really enjoyed the way he broke everything down, and I was able to understand it on that great portion of, Florida State gets put on ESPN and ABC quite often, regardless when we're good or bad. Just like we got completely embarrassed by Alabama when DeAndre Francois got hurt. Really, that was the downward of Florida State. But we usually find a way to get on ABC. The part of it that bothers Florida State is obviously we don't get, more than 7% of that return off of that viewership. So I agree with all of his information. I agree with how he broke it down. I don't agree that Florida State's going to stay in the ACC regardless of what they do, because then the only way that you get the playoff money is if you make the playoffs, and that's not guaranteed money every year. So that I don't see that being, suffice enough for Florida State to say, okay, we'll stay in the ACC. You either find a way to do this that Florida State gets extra money throughout the year on unequal sharing, and I still don't know if that's enough, because if you do the numbers, which Alford said the same thing, if you do the numbers, it still doesn't make up 30 million. But what does it make up? 10 million of it, 5 million of it, and then we got to start finding other ways to make up for the missing 30. Or you can just slide over to the Big Ten, and the academic side covers you on breaking even on the athletic side for the next 3 to 4 years, however long it is that you would have to give up your media rights, because even if it does hold up in court, it's not going to hold up till 2036. That's already been established by multiple, like the government's going to step in and say, well, Florida State's got to allow the grant of rights deal until 2029. And then that would probably be the end of it. And then Florida State starts getting their media rights back. And that's worst case scenario. The best case scenario is all of these loopholes that all these Florida State contract lawyers have found. I mean, it's literally what I think Florida State's going to do. And that's the whole reason that this came out in public, is because we had a bunch of lawyers say, hey, we could probably make this grant of rights thing disappear. Like we can make this, it's going to be in court until this time. And there's going to be no penalty on this besides the 120 to get out. And that's if you left today. So if we announced that we were going to leave, which is what I told people, I think we leave in 2025 or announce it in 2025, you're making it cheaper each and every year that we last. So if we stay here until 2025, 2026, that number goes from 120. After the math that I was able to do, you drop down under 70. So it becomes way cheaper to leave. And, Texas and Oklahoma they jumped a year early. They were supposed to do this in 2025, and they found a loophole that said, this makes more sense for us to go to the SEC a year early. So we're going to 2024. And I think the same thing happens with Florida State, and Florida State's going to get extra money on top of the research side because of what they're about to do with engineering, on top of what they're doing with the medical research, on top of the magnet research. It's just, I think you double your money. Like what he said, you turn 350 into 700 million, and that covers your problem.
I'm sorry. If somebody comes to me and says, James, give me 1,000, I'm going to give you 2,000. I'm going to be ecstatic about it. I can only imagine how much of a flex that would be actually, we'd probably lose our president. But the fact that he can come and say, yo, we were 350 and we made 700, that's going to make him the hottest thing. And if that's the opportunity, I think that's where people are going to go. It kind of changes our perspective. So, again, guys, one of the movies that we watched every day when I was at Florida State was called The Program. It's a great movie. You should watch it. I got one of my favorite Ricky Bobby quotes. It should have won the Academy Award for the best movie ever. That and The Mac. But he said, with all due respect, when's the last time 85,000 people showed up to watch somebody do a math problem? Well, it looks like a lot of people like math problems. Yep. So we need some people solving those math problems could solve our math problem in the arms race. So, Chris, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter or Facebook by looking up at Spiratics. And please make sure that you go check me out on YouTube. James is the co-host of Spiratics as well. We cover nothing but Florida State sports. So make sure that you go and check out the YouTube channel. Hit subscribe. It's 100% free if you want to become a member. There's 3 different tiers up there, and check them out because there's a lot of perks.
Gotcha. And guys, I'm at Big Game James _36. Appreciate you guys coming in. Make sure if you like this video, please like it. If you loved it, please share it with other friends. Each one teach one. A lot of information to hear. I think it was fun. It wasn't just burdensome. It wasn't just the numbers. It was engaging. I think this is what we want to do, is have intelligent convos about how much money we can make together, because that's what the beautiful part about it is Knowles showing and flexing the brand. We finally got, man, if we had it with TK. And TK was the guy who told the NCAA, if you try to make us change our Seminole logo, I'll leave this bitch. That's what he said. So but it looks like I don't really hear much from our president. I would like to interview him one day, but I do see Mike Offer. Money Mike is like what I call him, is that brash professional that we need to have here. As again, movie quote guy. We have a wartime consigliere. We don't have we have a Mike Offer. He's our guy. But without us being said, guys, have a good evening. I'll be having Big Games BS tomorrow at 10-ish a.m. In the morning, it'll be up here. Again, please like, share, retweet, subscribe. As always, go Noles.
Go Noles.